you? Welcome to Not This Time with Jamie. I'm here with my guest, Peter, friend of the show.
Okay.
How are you doing, Peter?
Doing well yourself?
I'm doing great. So what are we going to talk about today? What's on your mind?
Well, I am always interested in medical things. Growing up, I had a lot of medical issues. I liked looking into different topics, and reading articles. I find them very interesting. And one that's recently caught my attention is stem cells. You may have heard of them on, say, Joe Rogan or various other podcasts talking about them. And at one point, they thought that stem cells were just in, say, just babies or in umbilical cords. So they were trying to harvest them from them. Then they realized that adults actually have stem cells as well, which was an intriguing discovery. So they've been looking at how to increase them. Do you know anything about stem cells?
I know actually a fair bit. I was looking into that for a medical condition I have. And I talked to a clinic in Serbia. And that's where they get their stem cells. It's from the person themselves. And then they inject them into your bloodstream.
Pretty cool. So stem cells, most of them know them as babies, or as babies in embryo. You end up, or utero rather. We've got all sorts of different types of cells in our body, and they need to be able to differentiate to build those different pieces. But stem cells are, well, they can morph. They change into a cell that can become whatever part of the body they need to be. So they go where they need to be, and then they become what they need to be in order to do what they need to do. And I always found that really interesting because it can do whatever it needs to do where it needs to do it. And in order to increase the stem cells in your body, there's various different methods, and I've always found those very intriguing. Lately one is fasting. So if you fast,
Right.
I've heard the
Once
magic,
you get 3 days, I believe it is.
yeah, the magic number of 72 hours.
Yeah.
And I've almost gotten there. I'm going to try again sometime soon. I actually like fasting. I find it adds more time back to your schedule and saves a little money in your pocketbook. So
That's a good point. Yeah, when I talked to that clinic, and the only problem is that they don't cure you from whatever your condition is forever. Like say you got a bad knee or a bad ankle and you want stem cells instead of somebody doing surgery. It will heal it for a short period of time, maybe 3-4 years, but then you got to go back for more treatment, and it's very expensive. So unless you're rich, you're out of luck.
that sounds like a lot of things in life.
And when I was talking to a surgeon about stem cells, his attitude was, no, they don't work. There's no use to them and all this. And I thought, that might be because that this put him out of work.
Well, yeah.
So,
Well, absolutely. And maybe he needs to incorporate that into his field.
well, I mean, that's just it. There's nothing to his field. If somebody just has to give an injection, a nurse could do that, right? As for him, his is a very niche and specialty type of occupation. If suddenly there's no need for surgeons.
Although I'd be really curious is that, like, I haven't considered that too much before, but I mean, obviously surgery would be needed for repairing and replacing, but the actual healing after that, right? So for a surgeon, if you need to reattach
A ligament.
a ligament or something like that, yeah, if you're putting a ligament together, the stem cells aren't going to do that part.
No.
But
You're
they
right,
will
it could
help with the healing part.
which is maybe what they could do with it. My hope is that they can eventually progress past where they are now, which they probably will, because I mean, you look at where they were, say, 10, 20 years ago, it was just like a science fiction type of idea. It was in its infancy. And now we're actually at where people are going and getting treated. There's clinics everywhere outside of North America. North America is about the only place where they don't allow it.
That's key. It's like, why, and I know there's regulations, and sometimes there's regulations for reasons that we don't understand. So sometimes we're like, oh, that's just ridiculous. And sometimes, let's be frank, they are. Sometimes there are regulations in place because there's not enough information. We don't know the fallout. Frankly, there should be regulations on some things that don't have as much regulation, mandates. And those things got passed over and pushed through, whereas other ones had regulations that
Well,
should have been looked at.
There's the truth too that it has a lot to do with the money,
Oh, for sure.
who it's affecting, and what they want the government to push and not push. So there's people there that don't want stem cell technology in North America, so they apply pressure on the government to keep that from happening.
Well, and it's an interesting point, because you could look at it from just the medical standpoint and say that, well, we shouldn't have stem cells because of the negative side effects that we don't know yet, the lack of research, because like you said, it's only been like 20-ish years.
Right.
Or you could look at it from another perspective and say, how many people are going to be out of work? How many people won't know how to adjust to it? Are there going to be misuses of it? Are there unethical means of gathering those cells? Like, what are the other moral,
Right.
fiscal, and various different implications of getting them in there? And sometimes it's more complicated than we'd like to think, but at the same time,
Well,
I think
that surgeon's attitude, though, is like it just doesn't work and that's it. And the subject, which is kind of a Neanderthal attitude to have, especially for a surgeon, to think that because they haven't perfected something yet, that we should just out and out forget about it.
well, that's the end of progress in society in general.
Right.
But what I was going to say about I forgot it.
About the stem cells.
Yeah, thanks. Right back to that. But something very more specific about it was, sometimes there's regulations for good reasons. Sometimes there's some for bad reasons. Sometimes we look at it and say there are some types of fallout that we're not ready for, haven't expected. That doesn't mean don't look further. Don't do the investigation. Don't do the research. It simply means, okay, maybe we can hesitate, maybe we can take our time, but let's make progress. Not stop progress, not shut it down. Say, let's do it, but do it with our eyes wide open and being ready. Right?
See, there was, I know a lot of time, a lot of things that are banned isn't because they're not good for us or they're still worried about us being safe and whatnot. There was a doctor, I think it was back in the 20s or 30s, and this is in the United States, and he had a cure for cancer, and he was curing people. And Congress was like, we got to take a look at this. So they had him in front of Congress, in front of a congressional board, and they were quizzing him and asking him questions. He had people there that swore that his treatment cured them, and they banned it anyways. And then he ended up opening up a clinic in Mexico where he continued healing people, and then his daughter and his grandson eventually took over.
Do you know his name?
Maxwell.
Maxwell.
I don't remember his first
Dr.
name
Maxwell?
offhand. I just know his last name at the moment. But I mean, you can look him up on Wikipedia because he's on there. I heard the story elsewhere, outside of Wikipedia. And there's documentaries on YouTube about this. Anyways, it's an interesting case where the government banned something simply because they didn't want treatment to be used. I think they do want to control the population through birth and death. And cancer really would, if we could cure cancer, that would cut down on a lot of deaths.
Right.
And we might lead to overpopulation, perhaps, right?
Oh.
And maybe that's what they're trying to stop by keeping a cure from cancer.
There's a lot of really interesting things that go down that field, because there's a lot of questions that we want to ask, and it's interesting to look at some of the implications of various things. Now, I'm not saying I agree to stop, that we shouldn't stop cancer and just let people die.
Right.
But then you go, okay, well, what about the global atrocities that would happen?
Yeah, they're
because-
looking at the bigger picture,
right? So you say,
perhaps.
but then you say, okay, what do we do about that,
Yeah.
right?
I don't agree with that attitude,
Right.
but I'm just saying that could be their attitude.
Right, and
That
there
could be the motivation.
and those are legitimate questions specifically. So we ask, okay, what are the implications if we were to say solve all cancers like that immediately? They're done. What's some of the fallout of that? Like all the people that had to lose their jobs, right? All the different companies that produce, whether it be the pills, whether it be machines, whether it be hospitals, all those kind of things. What happens with that? What about the jobs that need
what
to be
are all the
filled?
ramifications of such a thing?
Right. And they are legitimate questions. And I think sometimes people will get on their hobby horse and then just throw the baby out with the bathwater.
And we have to
mixing
remember,
metaphors there, but you know.
medicine is a business,
Yeah.
right? Hospitals need to make money they need to employ all those people.
Yeah. And it is just because they're legitimate questions doesn't mean they're rhetorical. I don't like rhetorical. I don't like. Oh, sorry. I don't like rhetorical questions. I like questions that give answers. When people ask a rhetorical question, they're not looking for an actual answer. They can be fun to play with, but ultimately, we should be asking questions to receive answers. And when we ask those questions, it should be, well, what are we going to do with all the people that are going to be unemployed?
Well,
that's a great
just
question.
getting into that
What are we
part
going to do?
there. If that were the case of what they're worried about, people being unemployed, when IT came along, it put a lot of people out of work, but it created a lot of jobs too, right? So there is that there. Are they really concerned about that end of it, or are they even thinking about that end?
Well, there was a really interesting YouTube video. You look that up. Was Thanos right? I don't know if you didn't know Marvel much, but Thanos' idea that we have to remove half the population in order to have enough supply for all the populations. And they went into an interesting concept. They said at one point we thought the capacity of the Earth was at this level.
The maximum amount of people.
Right, that it could only sustain that many. Then we discovered different types of agriculture. And we go, oh, we can actually produce more food than we used to. It went up to here. And we're like, now, that's the new threshold. We can't do anymore. They said, no, we discovered GMOs. Now, good or bad, there's different debates, but they can produce more food. People are going to misuse everything, but they did produce more.
Right.
And suddenly, we could go up to here. And other people produced, and at some point, we discovered that we have trains, planes, and automobiles. Suddenly, we can move all that stuff around the world to where it needs to be before it rots. And we can sustain even more people. So those
And there's
questions-
even the case of natural resources, that we could run out of natural resources. But the fact of the matter is, we've only scratched the surface of the earth when it comes to mining. There could be far more resources deep in the earth that we haven't gotten to yet.
Well, Jamie, you're also missing that. You're saying just the Earth.
Right,
We're reaching other planets.
Well, yeah. Well, that's still a long way off.
We think it is, but sometimes science does exponentially grow as we learn different things.
Right.
Then we invest into that, and then we invest into things on top of that, and it grows exponentially. That's why we didn't have
Right, but
computers 100
Right
years
now,
ago.
as we said,
barely.
to get to Mars is 4 years with a manned mission.
For now.
4 years.
And man,
And that's at the closest distance between the Earth and Mars.
Yeah.
Because the distance changes, of course.
And then
once you're there, to have that close distance again, it takes 2 more years.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone were to go to Mars, some people, it'd be 10 years before they ever got back.
for now.
So for now.
And that's the question.
But that's 10 years you're talking, you're going to have to go into hypersleep. So that, what do they call it? Suspended animation.
Yeah.
So there's that to deal with too.
Again, manned missions.
I did watch something interesting on I don't know if anyone's ever watched the program Black Mirror.
Oh, jeez.
There's an episode where these 2 guys are up on a space station, and when they come to Earth, they go into a sleep. They plug their dog tag into a slot, and then they go into a suspended sleep. And their entity or whatever, their soul, whatever you want to call it, goes into an android on Earth that looks exactly like them, and then they're with their families. Now,
True.
that's again science fiction, but just interesting.
Yeah. So a lot of interesting. The one thing I also wanted to mention. Oh, so back to stem cells, because we take a couple of weird.
That's the way it goes. It's fun.
Cool. It's good. But with that, so you can fast for 72 hours. That encourages your body to produce stem cells. Apparently, dark chocolate, though I've heard some debates over how much research is actually gone into it versus just the polyphenols that are also included in dark chocolate. So there have been studies on the polyphenols, but have there been studies on specifically the ones in dark chocolate? And there's a little bit of question as to has that actual study been actually done? So I'm curious as to whether it has, but either way, the polyphenols are good. Then there's also studies as far as, what was the other? Olive oils giving protection. To
Right.
it.
I've heard about that too.
And different types of exercise.
I
helping
actually
it.
heard that you got to definitely stay away from seed oils. But olive oil there's a lot of health properties to it that that it outweighs any other kind of oil to cook with. So yeah, you're right on about that.
It's really cool. And again, neither of us are doctors.
No.
But it is really interesting information, and information is out there. Check out Google Scholar, check out other things, check out medical books, go to secondhand stores and check stuff out and see what information used to be out there versus what is out there. It's very interesting. And I'm going to try to give links to put into the description so you can check out some of the information yourself. Look up polyphenols, look up stem cells, look up fasting, put some of those words in there and see what comes out, and read some of the articles.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of information out there to look into from all over the world. As I said, I talked to a clinic in Serbia. I had video conferences with doctors about that, and it's interesting where it's going, and I think it's still a long way to go. And I think one day it may be the future of medicine. I certainly hope so. But we're gonna have to leave it there. So thank you for coming out, Peter, and thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Peace.